Today we're talking about the Fortune Rose tattoo design. Welcome back. You might recognize this design from the Understanding Lettering video, but in this one we get to go into much greater detail, and I get a chance to share with you all the tricks and techniques that help make this one design possible. And before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Our client would like the words "Fortune favors the bold" in a banner flowing across her ribs surrounded by a few roses, and she would prefer the British way of spelling the word favors. And here I'm just doing a quick thumbnail sketch. I usually do several of these before starting a design, and this is the one that I ended up using. As usual, the client has provided a few reference images to help explain what they're looking for, so we'll keep these here for inspiration. A key part to this design is the lettering. So to get started, I quickly finish up a rough banner. Now we'll be redrawing this later, but this will help get us started. To help build our lettering, I start by browsing a font website, but we need to narrow the search, so we'll only be looking at script fonts. And most of these websites let us change the sample text, so when I find one that might be a good starting point, I take a screenshot and paste it directly into the project, and that way we can compare fonts side by side. At this point, I'm looking for any letters that seem confusing. Sometimes lowercase letters can look a bit strange, and I like to mix and match a capital letter that pairs well with the best lowercase option. We want our uppercase letter to look interesting but not confusing. From here, I start narrowing down my choices. It's easy to get bogged down with too many options, so the way I avoid that is by constantly eliminating choices as I move through the design. I'm also doing a rough placement to see how the lettering might look on top of the banner. And this kind of thing can be done in any design software like Procreate or Photoshop. I'm just skewing the letters into a starting angle. The key here is to just keep comparing things and let your options battle it out, and keep narrowing down your choices, and that way you don't get overwhelmed. I end up choosing a different font for the capital letter. I just need to make sure that the angles match so the styles blend together. I also tweak the flourishes just to keep everything consistent. Now I'm adding some very light guidelines, and these lines are critical. You'll need them before curving your lettering. And once the letters are in their starting position, I give them a rough starting angle, and we can start to curve the lower text. Before we begin, I make sure the lettering is roughly centered inside the banner. We'll use the skew tool to adjust the angle, starting from the inside and moving outward. And we're just moving the letters up or down so the guidelines match the curve of the banner, starting from the middle and taking our time and making small changes as we go. Okay, we have a good start. The next line has a bit more of a curve to it, so I get that into place, and same as before, starting in the middle and working outward, skewing each section to match the banner lines the best we can. And on the other side, we do the same thing. This technique is pretty easy, and with some practice, it goes pretty fast. The reason I use this method exclusively when curving lettering is because it gives me the most realistic result. It preserves all the spacing and the detail in the letters. Now, if I had to redraw these letters into a curve, I'm just not that confident that I could get it looking perfect. So for me, this technique is extremely useful. Now that we've got a rough start for our lettering, let's begin to work on the background. To get started, I generate a lot of roses, making sure they all have the same light source coming from the top, and that way we can pick out our favorites while keeping consistent lighting. I cut out a bunch of roses in this area so I can drag them into the design to see which ones work best next to our banner and lettering. And with that, we have enough parts to begin building out our rough composition. I start by adjusting the angle and the size of the lettering. It's important that it doesn't reach too high into the armpit or extend too far onto the chest. Our client would prefer it to stay on the ribcage and avoid the waist. Then I rough in the roses, add some rosebuds and leaves, and block in the background. And we don't mind this part being rough because we'll be making our final choices on paper. To transfer it to paper, I copy the artwork, create a new project that's the size of a sheet of paper, and paste the artwork in. And after resizing it, I lower the opacity to about 10% and print out a copy. And now that we have a rough composition on paper, we can begin to refine the outlines. And this process is called overdrawing, and I'm sure you've seen me do it before. It's the technique I use when I want to keep all the proportions from the computer but make my final choices on paper. Now, lots of artists do their line work on Procreate, and the process is essentially the same. You take a rough start and make more refined choices on top. It really doesn't matter if you're using a pencil or a tablet. It's pretty much the same either way, I just prefer to do this design on paper. After getting the first outlines done with the mechanical pencil, I begin with the shading. To start, I use my hardest pencil and shade in all the light and medium values in the top part of the artwork. I try to complete the shading as I go because I don't want to smudge the graphite with my hand. That's always a risk when using pencils. I'm not too worried about the mechanical pencils though. It's a harder pencil and there's less graphite on the surface. Next, I go in with my softest and darkest pencil. I use this one half the time as a liner and half the time as a shader. It's really versatile. I used to do most of my line work with pen and ink, but with a really dark pencil, I can just do a lot more with that one tool. Plus, if you don't like any of your pencil line work, you can always erase it, which is a little harder to do with pens. I'm also using my thin polymer eraser to clean up the negative space, and my mechanical pencil to sharpen up and define the shading. And that keeps things from looking too mushy or blurry. And this kind of shading with sharp edges is perfect for the letters on top of our banner. I'm mostly relying on crosshatching for the shading. In the final tattoo, this will be a smooth gradient, but crosshatching helps me move more quickly and gives the drawing a sketchbook feel, which I really like. We all love flipping through an artist's sketchbook. I think a sketchbook gives you a look at how the artist constructed their artwork and lets you in on the process, and that can be really cool to see. So here I'm just doing my shading and finishing things up as we go. Up until a few years ago, I would almost exclusively use the computer for my final artwork, and I had a Cintiq that I used almost every day. But more recently, I began to finish the artwork on paper instead. And when I was done tattooing the art onto the client, I still had their original drawing left over, which I could give to the client or hang up in the tattoo shop. And people will usually notice this artwork on the wall and comment on it. And I started to realize that this physical artwork has a unique effect on people. So I reinvented my workflow to include papers and pencils and pens, and now I use those tools in the majority of my tattoo designs. I still do every portrait from a photo, of course, and there's still lots of designs that I feel are best done on the computer. For me, it really doesn't matter how a tattoo artist creates their final artwork. What matters to me is having a lot of tools in your toolkit, and that way you can just use the best tool for the job. A jack of all trades is a master of none, but is often better than a master of one. So here, I'm finishing up the bottom part of the shading and starting with the light and medium grays, and then moving into the dark outlines and some deeper shading. And since we've completed each section before moving on, we do not have to go back over our drawing and smudge all of our graphite. I make sure to do a pass with the eraser and clean up the negative space, and then sharpen up the shading with the mechanical pencil. And now we're just adding a few final touches and cleaning up a few more spots, and with that, the artwork is complete. To get this artwork back into the computer, I scan it, but you can use a camera to do this as well. I make a few small adjustments to the center of the roses and use the liquify tool to reshape a few areas, and you can do this in Procreate or Photoshop. After that, I change the artwork layer to multiply and line it up with our rough composition. Then, after making a few more finishing touches, the artwork is complete, along with a full presentation to show our client during the next consultation. And that is the first draft of the Fortune Rose tattoo design. Hey, if you got anything out of this, then help us out by hitting the like button. And subscribe to our channel, we come out with new videos often. And make sure to hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And if you're serious about creating the best art possible for your tattoos, then go to tattoodesignschool.com and check out the masterclass. This is everything I wish I knew when I was first starting out, and it will push you to create artwork you didn't think was possible. This is the perfect investment in your tattoo career, so check out the masterclass at tattoodesignschool.com. But most importantly, share this video with the person you know who's interested in artwork and tattoos. And we'll see you in the next one.